Are turn-based RPGs going away? We all saw that Final Fantasy 16 is looking to be an action RPG and no longer turn-based in any way, shape, or form. Got a lot of people scared. We know that the new Pokemon game, there was some, I don't want to say controversy when you had Legends. Then you got this new one coming out. People aren't sure if it's going to be turn-based or what's going on.
It is turn-based.
It is turn-based? All right.
Yeah.
So just forget the last 30 seconds of what I said. But anyway, I want to hear what the panel has to say about this. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends. Blinded Braille are turn-based RPGs going away. When I mean going away, we're talking big AAA franchises.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think it's going to depend though, because that new Marvel game, the Midnight Suns, that is a turn-based game, but it's not a traditional turn-based game. It's more like a free-flowing turn-based, where you're sort of in an arena. And so it is
more like an XCOM.
No, it's not. It's not like XCOM.
Not even?
No. It's a turn-based game. Like there's going to be multiple people, but instead of it just being like you have like two different sides and then you just make your attacks, the whole game is actually about movement. So
yeah, that's
like
how XCOM is. Have you ever played XCOM?
No, this is not like XCOM. Did you see the Midnight Suns gameplay at all?
Yeah.
Like out of curiosity. No, that's not XCOM. That's not how XCOM looks. No. XCOM is
I didn't say the look. I just said, moving around on a map.
Sure, but I would not say that's XCOM.
I mean, what else would you say?
The way that they described it, they said it's definitely not XCOM, because I was listening to the developer interview and I read some of it. Like it is a turn-based. Like the way that it plays is a turn-based game, right? Like in a normal RPG where you have two different sides and they got to go each turn, right? And you're on kind of like opposing sides and it's very stiff. Like there's not a lot of movement involved, right? Like movement is not the point of a turn-based, right? I'll except like, I don't know, like a Fire Emblem or an XCOM, right? But that is more of like a strategy game where you're like, it's an open area. Like this is actually harder to describe now that I think about it as I go on. But no, like the way that when you look at it, you're like, no, those are like two different types of games, right? Even though they're in the same genre, right? Like it's a strategy RPG, but it's like they can look dramatically different. So, but I mean, that is still a niche genre in general. Like, you know what I mean? Like people, like maybe like, I mean, Fire Emblem sold actually a lot, like what, 3 million, 4 million now. So,
yeah, something like that.
I mean, that's pretty good for that type of game. But if you're talking about like what the next, like the Old Republic remake, like that's not going to have turn-based. It's all just going to be action.
I can't say that I've ever played an RPG that wasn't turn-based.
Well,
is this like newer stuff?
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls would be a RPG that's not turn-based.
Elden Ring.
Scrolls.
Elden
Ring is?
Yeah. Horizon.
Oh, okay. I'm done.
Witcher 3.
I guess it's anything that you're leveling up, then you're considering an RPG, like you're leveling
I mean, it's kind of hard because it's hard to like define now. Like I know people are like, is Horizon really an RPG? And it's like, no, it is RPG. But it's like God of War also has like a leveling system. And it is very RPG-like, but I wouldn't say that game is a RPG. I don't know.
It's RPG mechanics.
It does, yeah.
Mechanics are being put into so many games these days. It's kind of like making the
bizarre
genre kind of broader.
Yeah. Like even Gotham Knights has RPG elements in it. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. But I think the way you prepositioned it is a bit of a tricky one because you like major AAA games. But like in the JRPG scene, like no, like turn-based games are definitely not going away. There's always going to be a market for them.
Yeah, it's like
just to get back to this Midnight Suns, because I'm really
salty.
Here's the gameplay. No, not salty. Because look, it's an open
No.
map.
I feel like this. I've seen this one. This is not a good demonstration of it. Go look up the one where they're fighting against Venom. That's a better demonstration of what that game is. Because this, I know what you're talking about. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this looks like just a different perspective, XCOM. But it's like no, like the way that it's like playing out.
Battlefield itself.
Because this is an older trailer.
And smash your way to victory using the
look at a newer one.
Enemies. Send the bad guys
like the whole gameplay one
into each other, or just right over
so you're saying there's no movement. They're just that this is just the battle screen essentially. So you don't have to position. You don't have to position your character.
No, the way that your character, you only have one move, right? You can only move once, but at the same time, your attacks can move your players or your enemies, right? So you only have one move for the entire of your squad, right? That's not how XCOM works, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like movement, this is a turn-based combat, like in the traditional sense, like we're talking about like Final Fantasy, but there is a movement element, right? Where you can now take your enemies and slam them into a different area, and you can position it for a different type of attack, or like, you know, you can get really strategic where you're like bouncing attacks off of different players, right? In order to get it, like, you know, a boost or whatever. So I would say, no, this is not playing like XCOM. Like the developers themselves said, this is not XCOM. Like people are going to have that impression, but it's not XCOM. And when you look at it further, right? Because like I said, the snippets of it just doesn't do it justice. That's why when I saw the gameplay, because people were like, oh, I hate the card system in the game and yada yada yada. And it's like, no, if you actually see them like completely play out the whole game, right? Like from start to finish in a battle, you're like, oh, this actually looks really interesting, especially with the Fire Emblem elements of like the relationship building and stuff, and like how that's going to play out in the battle. So
all right, I'm going to pull up the Venom trailer. Hold on. Let me get to the...
It's not a trailer, it's a gameplay. Just like straight gameplay.
Yeah, Tony.
Which one? I got like 3 of them. The hands-on impression, the IGN one. Which one?
There was one from, I think it was Game Informer, because I don't remember actually, the IGN one is similar to the Game Informer one, because it's like out on the street and stuff. It's with Spider-Man too, yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a 1-to-1. I was just like, you know, moving people into position and then making attacks is what I was getting at as far as.
No, it's more like you attack based on movement. It's like the reverse. Like the goal is not to move.
This means you might draw all Iron Man cards on a given turn and thus give Tony the opportunity to gloat later that he did all the hard work. Positioning is also important, but I found it kind of cumbersome to maneuver at first, and you only get one free move per turn. Not one per hero, one per turn. The levels themselves are almost all flat arenas, which is probably the most disappointing part of Midnight Suns thus far. There are a lot of environmental elements scattered around, like heavy objects to throw and structures to vault off of. But after the 5 or 6 hours I played, the fact that every mission
that's what I've been saying this whole time.
Open warehouse or an open street or in an open field started to get a little bit old. Aside
no,
that,
I would say no.
As well, and you can pull off some really cool combos.
The goal is not to move.
Every hero
the goal
has
is
a unique ability of
you're
some
attacking,
kind, like Captain Marvel's ability to
sort
go
of
binary,
aiming that attack in a
3
direction.
cards in succession,
and that's why
gaining a temporary boost to armor and damage.
Everything's an attack. There's just
minion enemies like random Hydra goons go down in one hit with any amount of damage, so chain attacks that hit more than one foe can really change the tide of battle quickly. Against big brutes and bosses, Blade's ability to inflict bleed is really useful. No matter what team I brought, the personality and fighting style of the characters really shined through. And I enjoyed figuring out how they could set each other up.
All right, I think that's enough of that. We're straying too far from the main topic. Bob, what do you think down there?
Typical.
No, like, well, I mean, in the main AAA scene, like, I mean, the developers for Final Fantasy came out and literally said that the turn-based mechanics for the game was a limitation of the technology at the time. So people salty that Final Fantasy 16 is going in an action direction is like, well, it's the evolution of a series. Like, that's the direction
I'm salty.
going in. Yeah, well, be salty. But like, there's plenty of, if people want like turn-based JRPGs, they just turn-based RPGs or JRPGs. There's plenty out there. There's loads out there.
Well, there's loads of AAA ones coming out. I know everyone. That was the whole crux of people's arguments. Well, yeah, of course, there's always going to be the, indie RPGs turn-based coming out. The RPG Maker games, but no AAA studios because Final Fantasy is like the only AAA turn-based RPG. But I think you got things like Jagged Alliance 3 coming out. It's turn-based.
But why would you want a AAA turn-based RPG like on the level of a Final Fantasy 16?
Well, I mean,
like, why would you want that?
It's really what depends on how you define AAA. I mean, is Total
No,
War...
I mean, like, look at Final Fantasy 16, right? The graphics and everything, but instead of it being, action oriented,
because I don't like
turn-based.
I want a turn-based Final Fantasy because that's what I want.
He's a boomer.
I am.
I just feel like this is the same thing with Gary that I just don't understand. It's like that's never going to happen, and I don't really understand.
I know. Go away, old man.
I know, but like it just doesn't.
Final Fantasy was always a turn-based series, so
sure. But I would say that because it's an RPG, it's like the way that the direction is going is like people want immersion, and I feel like turn-based.
Well, I'm not people.
If it's not, saying. Sure, but I'm just giving you a counter argument, right? Like
I'm not making any argument. I'm saying personally, I don't.
Like you're saying that you want it, that right? And I'm saying, well, the reason why you're not going to get it is because it's kind of immersion breaking.
Well, I know I'm not going to get it. And I know why I'm not going to get it. It still does not relieve my desire of wanting it.
Okay.
Well, then get the Pixel remasters.
Yeah, Blinded Brand.
Yeah, you could do that.
You're the new Gary Blinded.
Yeah, sure. Even though I'm not the one giving out like a really bizarre take. Like this is a take that like everybody in the community agrees.
Poor Gary.
I want Final Fantasy to be fantasy, not sci-fi. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the new Final Fantasy 16 is set more in the medieval universe.
Yeah. Yeah, so that part is null and void because they are giving it to you. It's just that it's action oriented. Like the whole reason why, right? Like they will move away from the like turn-based, right? Or their traditional style of whatever franchise like Zelda is because like people want immersion. That's why people play video games now. It's all about the immersion and like the depth in the world and trying to make it not realistic but believable. And that's why you have a lot of open world games, right? It's because
and not just that, but it's accessibility as well. Like they make it like action adventure, like the RPG I'm talking about, like Final Fantasy 16. So it's going to be more accessible to people, whereas a lot of people find turn-based games like archaic and slow.
Yeah, well, and remember, it's supposed to be like story-driven, right? Like you care about the characters and what's going on. So people want that sort of attachment where it's like they're more closer to the action.
Yeah, see, I'm with Potion Sword Run. He says, I want a turn-based too. Immersion be damned. I know I'm not really in a battle. It's just what I like. I like turn-based games. I like Final Fantasy. Don't take away my turn-based Final Fantasy.
And I mean, they're still giving it to you. That's what I'm saying. But like you want the newest game to be turn-based.
I want the newest game in the franchise that was based on turn-based RPGs to still remain a turn-based RPG.
And
they could make Final Fantasy 16, but just take the Final Fantasy name off of it, slap a different name on it, and we'll all be happy. You'd get a game that was action-based with all these fantastic graphics. It just won't be Final Fantasy, and I won't complain about it. So
I mean, this is the same take that Gary has about like Zelda or like Metroid. It's like the series has been around because it evolved. Like, let's be honest. Final Fantasy exists because it evolved and it tried to do something different. Yeah.
Final Fantasy is still around because Final Fantasy VII was fantastic.
No, it evolved.
Just about
it was a turn-based RPG.
Right.
No, it evolved.
What
it was, but it like it was just a
3D graphics. And
every game, every series that we talk about now is because it evolved and it did something different and it played with what came before, and they saw the future of what that series would be, and that's why it exists right now, right? So it's like I just don't get that take where you're like you want to go back to the roots of it.
Here's the difference between a Final Fantasy and a Legend of Zelda or a Metroid. Every Final Fantasy game, for the most part, because I know there's this couple that followed, but for the most part, they're not direct sequels. They have no ties to each other. Right?
Hold on, I have to say this about Ninja Kitty, because Ninja Kitty is like, this is the same thing with the movies. It's like you think that, right? But the sales, like I'm talking about general, like I'm nuts, but I'm talking about the objective point. I'm looking at the sales and the community, right? Like the community is going in a different direction. The series is going in a different direction. And I mean, like, to be honest, that's why you guys are in a very niche, like you guys like retro games, and it makes sense, right? Like you guys aren't too into like the AAA space.
I'm into the AAA stuff. I'm not retro.
Not really. Like if I'm being honest, like,
yeah,
like you guys really aren't. Like you kind of, like you said, you didn't.
I will admit, I'm not. I like my old.
Like it's fine.
Games.
Like I get that, but like you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like arguing like the same argument that Gary's making, right? And like I get it from your guys' perspective, right? Like I'm not like, oh, I don't get it, right? I understand that you wanted to return to what it was, right? And I feel like companies do recognize that, and I think they should continue to recognize it. That's why you have like spin-offs or like diversions, right? Where you get like you know, the main series, but you also got the other series, right? Or the different types of games. So it's like, you know, if they continue doing that, yeah, Ninja Kid, you're like how old? Like I'm the 22-year-old who's like in the gaming community that's like listening to people. I'm not out of touch. I'm listening to what everybody else is saying and coming up with a conclusion. It's a lot of these games, like watch when Final Fantasy 16 ends up being the best seller in the series.
Oh, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, right? Like who's out of touch? Like that's what I'm trying to say. It's like you guys aren't seeing, like, people want open world games. They want immersive games. They want immersive sims. They want games where you're in a world and you can spend 50 hours. That's why people love Elden Ring.
Hold on. Because Final Fantasy VII sold 18.4 million, right?
Which is this the original?
The original.
Okay.
Sales in millions, right? So what did Final Fantasy VIII do? It should do better, right? Because the series evolved. So
no.
No? So it shouldn't be better? Should it be better or worse?
I feel like that's a bit of a straw man, because that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that evolve. Hold on, wait, let me make my point. I'm not saying that because you evolve, it's going to equal to sales. I'm saying that the community
you said that's what people
and
want,
the culture of gaming community, it evolves, and yeah, sometimes it's going to fail. That's the whole point of evolving.
Final Fantasy
it fails.
Did 9 million, 9.6 million. Final Fantasy 9 only did 5.9 million.
Okay.
Final Fantasy 10 did 9 million. So Final Fantasy 7,
9 million is still pretty decent for a game. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a drop off, but like
a huge drop off. You went from 18 million, and that's not even over the lifetime. The lifetime is 24 million when you count all the Final Fantasy 7 stuff. But just the Final Fantasy 7 original.
How is this Tommy Tallarico logic? Like, you guys are the ones who are stuck in the past. I'm sorry to say, you guys are the ones who aren't going to be the innovators. I'm sorry to say.
Look at Final Fantasy 12, 7.2 million.
Like, come, Bob, you got to back me up on this, because Bob is the only one that's
I'm trying to get in.
Because, like, you guys really need, like, you guys need to talk to.
You do realize that Final Fantasy VII was something incredibly special at the time, because it was like the game which introduced JRPGs to a wider audience. That's why it's like sold 18 million, and they didn't advertise it like an RPG. People didn't know what they were getting. The trailers were all like very action oriented.
I will give you that. I'll give you everything. So Final Fantasy 15 should at least equal the sales of Final Fantasy 7, right?
No.
No.
But like 10 million.
All right, I have a joke. I'm going to interrupt with a joke again. A real bad joke. Y'all ready?
This is hilarious. All of a sudden now that I say this point, everybody's like, "You're fucking. You play Candy Crush and you're out of touch." And I'm like, "You guys are like 40-something-year-olds who literally aren't even on Twitch. You guys aren't on Reddit and seeing what everybody's saying." No, you're not, because you would be saying your opinion, but you would see that this is the direction. Like, why do you think the gaming industry has become a billion-dollar industry? Is because games have now started becoming something immersive.
It's a billion-dollar industry because of all the whales. We just discussed $24 million
because of the
Diablo. Okay.
Yeah, but why is that though? Like, you're not getting it. Why is people spending money on Fortnite? Why are people spending money on games like Diablo? Right? It's because there's some level of immersion, right? The immersion is what is carrying the industry now, whether it's multiplayer, whether it's single player.
Sorry.
I'm gonna die on this hill because like you guys are the ones who are not seeing
Candy
it.
Crush doesn't have immersion and it makes all
that's not what I'm saying. Potion Roar's son was Jesus. Now I'm like slurring my words. Potion Sword Blood was saying that I was playing Candy Crush because of what I'm saying. But it's like you guys.
But I said
you guys listen. Hold on. You may not like something, right? And like I said, I don't like a lot of games, but I get why it's popular. I get why it's selling. Why there's an appeal for it.
It's immersion, and I'm telling you, games on mobile that make lots of money are not immersive games.
Well, okay. Well, let's forget about. First off, my point wasn't even talking about mobile games. My point was really talking about console and PC, right? That was my main point.
What you said was the industry is now a billion-dollar industry because of immersion. And so I countered.
I would still say that.
But I countered by saying the industry is making so much money because of all the profits off of the mobile games.
Microtransactions.
Yeah, from mobile games. Yeah. They're not immersive.
It's not just mobile games. Like, Fortnite still makes $1 billion. Like, a year. It's crazy.
I don't think and like Fortnite I said, it's because... Immersive. Do you think Fortnite?
I would say Fortnite. Why I would say Fortnite is immersive is because they're bringing in ads, they're bringing in characters and IPs that people recognize, and they're trying to build this hub where like everybody just goes to it and it becomes like a community place, right?
Well, that's community. Games. That's not immersion.
No, I would say that is part of immersion because immersion is about being in part of the game. Like you feel like you're part of the game. Like you can say Deus Ex is immersive, right? Yeah, like immersion in the gaming industry, like it varies, but it still means that you're part of the game. Like I get it. Listen. I get why I'm getting the hate because you guys are from the retro space. You guys like retro games. You guys like older games, right?
I like modern
and a lot
games.
of older games. But you said that. There's a lot of modern games that you said you were not playing. Like you're not playing the Nintendo games. You're not. I just don't play Switch.
I don't play them.
Well, you're not playing. Well, that's what I'm saying. You're not playing what Nintendo's putting out. You're not playing what Sony's been putting out. Sony's been putting out again quality level games like The Last of Us, God of War, Uncharted. Obviously, you play Spider-Man. I know that. Obviously, and they're continuing to do that. And Xbox is doing the same with Halo. Halo is another example of them steering in the direction of this immersion where it's an open world game that they're going to build upon for decades, right? Like they're like, you know what I mean? Like people in especially like your generation will see modern games as being bad, right? I agree. I'm not saying you did. I'm not saying you did, but I'm looking at the chat and what everybody's saying in the chat. Right, because like I know you guys aren't a bunch of 20-something-year-olds looking at what everybody's saying, right? Like you guys are in a different generation, and I expect you guys to have a different type of way. Well, my generation is looking at games a little bit differently, right?
Well, my generation,
like he's saying, like Ninja Kitty's saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. Halo. I just told you something that is a fact. Well, Halo is moving in that direction where they're trying to support it for 10 years. What did I say is wrong? You guys don't like what I'm saying. and then you're getting upset. Give me a counter argument. Give me a counter argument.
You keep talking.
Well, I'm saying the chat. The chat has got to give me a proper counter argument, because the last time Ninja Kitty was saying, I have all this experience in being working in the video store, as if that's equivalent to filmmaking and going to film school. But you know what I mean? Okay. So that's why I'm getting riled up, because I think this is the first time I've actually had fun doing this, but
the chat is just giving you shit because you're getting riled up.
Yeah, because I'm getting riled up, but I want them to give me an argument, because they haven't given me an argument.
Well, I'm going to give you the argument that my generation bought more Final Fantasy games.
Talking about my generation.
Sure. Are you the generation who's going to lead the gaming industry though?
If we die, we're going to leave the gaming industry. So.
No, but are you the ones who are going to leave behind something for us to now go and start developing, like for the AAA space? Like, I'm talking about what we're getting right now with like Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild. I mean, I don't like Starfield, but Starfield is another example of that modern games that people are like
blinded. How about
again, what does this have to do with anything? This doesn't have to do with skill. This is looking at the business of the industry, the creative output of the industry, where they're going. This has nothing to do with like, you guys are, listen, I get it. I said that you guys are boomers. You guys are boomers. Like, let's be honest. You guys are really out of touch.
Boomers. I'm in touch. You're boomers.
But yes, Bob. Come on, Bob. The way that they're talking right now, it's like you guys are kind of boomer-esque.
What'd you say, Sonny? What'd you say?
I've been dying to say for ages. Blinded. There's one thing you're doing which is bad. You're doing a Gary, and you're saying you're using immersion too much, like he uses innovative.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing they're gonna say about in the chat. They're gonna say that I'm Gary because I'm getting riled up.
The interpretation, the message you're going for, I get. Like that, but like I don't know if immersion is the right word. But like they're building.
I would agree with that. I'm just saying, because it's a word that when I'm like listening to a lot of people like in the industry and how they're talking about game design, or like when you take a game design class, like that's the word, is like immersion, right? Yeah. And it's like I could see now, like, yeah, like I said, you wouldn't compare Fortnite to Deus Ex, right? But at the same time, they're doing something that I believe is very similar, right? It's just that they're in a different genre.
Like Potion Sword Run says, all we asked for was a AAA turn-based RPG, and now we need hearing aids.
Yeah, well,
here's the question, Blinded. If they made the new Final Fantasy game a turn-based RPG, do you think it would sell less or more than the previous game in the series?
I would say less. That's like definitely. Without a doubt.
And my belief is they would sell more.
Categorically less. No,
but why do you believe it would sell more? That's what I'm saying. Bob, this is what I'm saying, though. Bob, this is what I'm saying. They are the ones that are out of touch and they don't get it. I'll die on this hill. They can call me Gary all they want.
Sonny, listen, real quick. If 14 million sales it wasn't 14. What did I say? 18 million sales for Final Fantasy VII, and the series has never reached that number again. My generation still exists. If you made a new AAA Final Fantasy turn-based RPG, we would buy it because that's what we want. And those people that bought Final Fantasy VII would buy the new Final Fantasy if it was a turn-based RPG. When Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and it wasn't a turn-based RPG, how many of us said, fuck it, we're not buying it? I didn't buy it.
I know a lot of people didn't buy it.
And why was it? Because it wasn't a turn-based RPG anymore. That's what we wanted.
Sure, but it wasn't also for your generation. That's why they remade the game.
It didn't make as much money as.
Why would they remake a game? Hold on. Why would they remake a game and make it turn-based?
Because that's what it was originally. They remade games and just.
That's the whole point of a remake, though. Is like when you're remaking it, you're usually trying to upgrade it in some sense.
Yeah,
right. You're trying to add, either change it dramatically or give it a good spruce up, I guess.
That wasn't the original plan for the remake, though. Did you see the original plan? Because they've changed.
I always thought that was the plan. Oh, so they originally had it as. I mean, I could see that, yeah, but like they probably thought that's why it
they changed
never went to market.
That was working on it. That's why the gameplay changed. They scrapped what they had in the original version of the Final Fantasy VII remake.
I think people hold on, because like just another viewer is like that's not what I'm saying. Like, okay, because I could see now why you were saying this is like gone off the rails. I'm not saying turn-based. I'm not saying turn-based is archaic and old, right? Persona is popular because it's a beloved series, right? And it's very niche, right? It's not on the level of of a Last of Us or Final Fantasy, right? Where it's like it's going to consistently sell 10 million reach 10 million. Or Dragon Quest, Mass Effect, whatever RPG, Western
Dragon
RPG
Quest
style.
Hasn't changed being a turn-based RPG this whole time.
Dragon Quest the new one is probably not going to be a turn-based.
No,
obviously.
The new one is going to be. The developer of the game came out and said, "Hey, don't worry, we're not fucking changing this."
Yeah,
I think it's going to
Dragon Quest. Like, it's not as big as a franchise as Final Fantasy.
I want to see what happens to that game though, because I have a feeling they're going to spruce it up. The way it was kind of looking was like a reboot, right? Until they gave it that subtitle. But my point, like what I'm trying to say is that the gaming industry, right, is moving in a direction where it's trying to evolve. And so some types of games will always have appeal, right? Like I'm not saying turn-based games are not going to be appealing. Like I literally just said, Fire Emblem is at its height and hasn't changed at all, right? So, but at the same time, it sells a really lot, but it's not selling like Mario or Zelda, right? It's niche, right? And so the games that are going to accumulate a lot of sales, that people are going to get a lot of reviews, maybe even be considered game of the year, are games that are trying to now, that word that Bob was saying is, kind of a bit shaky, but immersion, right? That's why Elden Ring is getting a lot of good reviews, and why people are saying it's one of their favorite games is because it's an open world game, and it's something that the other Souls games kind of experimented with, but they haven't done it, right? And so this is a game that goes, okay, we're going to combine everything. We're going to evolve all the systems, the ideas that we had, starting all the way back from when we were doing Demon Souls, right?
Yeah, I wish
that is
being turn-based. They need an open world chess game. That's what we need.
Like not everything will be open world.
No, right? but I think you're missing the point, Blinded. We're not saying to take away open world RPG games. We're saying one particular franchise. This one particular
franchise is not. But I just don't. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to do that. The way that they're moving, the way that they showed off that game, and how it's getting attention. If that game was turn-based, it would not get the same amount of attention. Where people who haven't played the series are now like, they're looking at it differently, right? In a way where it's like, oh, I might go and play this.
In a way that it's no longer Final Fantasy.
And you could say, you could say that if you want.
I did say that like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah. Let me give my dumb joke real quick. Tony needs to wear a red hat that says "Make Final Fantasy Great Again."
Yeah, I'd wear that.
He can say that. He said
you've talked all about like Final Fantasy 7 to 13 to 15, but did you even mention Final Fantasy 14? No, because it's an MMO and it's the biggest MMO going, and that's not a turn-based game.
But they don't have sales. There's sales.
No, they're not sales on it because it's a free-to-play subscription game.
Right. But that's why I didn't mention it, Bob, because I don't have sales data for a game that doesn't have sales.
Yeah, but
it's also popular though.
But it's massively popular. It's bigger than WoW now, and like you could look at the player base of how many people are playing, and I bet that'd blow you away. And also like the amount of money it's generated. This
What's
is just
the gameplay like in that?
It's not turn-based, and it's like kind of like
active time battle.
Yeah, kind of like it's not the same as Final Fantasy VII remake, but it's kind of action strategy kind of.
It's kind of like WoW.
But like it's that game pretty much had a massive influence on the future of like the Final Fantasy games, and like Final Fantasy 15, despite the sales, was like really popular, and they're like improving on that formula of the action Final Fantasy games.
Dorkside says, I have a great idea for a game. Hear me out. This game would be a Mario game. The characters would look like they were hand-drawn, and it would be a turn-based RPG.
Oh,
hey,
wow.
did you see the new Paper Mario? Did you see the new Paper Mario?
I have not.
I've seen it. I don't know much about it.
That's not even a turn-based game anymore. They changed it.
Evil says, I'm on Twitch, and turn-based game streams are still super popular there.
That's not the... Okay, let me condense it into a sentence. Okay. I'm trying to say the games that are mega super popular, the games that are selling 10 million plus, the games that are on the level of The Last of Us, A Legend of Zelda, Halo, Gears of War, games that are like recognized big IPs they're ready to turn into movies, they're ready to turn into series. Those types of games that they're pushing, that they're spending hundreds, even $500 million on, right? Those are the games that they are not going to revert back to their roots. That's what I'm saying. And it's because they evolved and they are relevant for that, right? We are still talking about Halo 20 years later. Well, mostly because it is, maybe that's not the best example, but I messed up with that one. But let's.
It's funny that you keep saying Halo. I've actually been playing Halo this entire time while we're doing this conversation.
Let's say Zelda, because Zelda is the one that's controversial among people who are more of the older generation, right? Zelda Breath of the Wild is the best-selling Zelda game.
And
why is that?
I can't.
Yeah, you guys hate it.
I tried to play it.
A lot of the people who grew up with Zelda, they don't like that game, right?
Nope. I like my original Zelda.
I like the best Zelda 2. But
that's what I'm saying.
Controversial.
It found a new sort of audience, right?
Yeah.
But the Wii had a massive Ninja Kitty. The Wii had a massive audience, and Legend of Zelda did not. Skyward Sword didn't sell good. Twilight Princess, which was a port, right?
Well,
but it still didn't sell as much as Breath of the Wild. The gaming audience is growing. They're seeing these IPs and they're trying it out, and developers are recognizing we got to change it up a little bit. And when they change it up while keeping what was there intact, right?
Hold on. I think Zelda's kind of a bad example. Because it didn't do gangbusters on the Wii U.
Or it's on Switch.
Yeah, but it was also on
Wii U too, but because nobody wanted to buy that because the graphics.
No. The reason why I brought that up is because Ninja Kitty was saying, what did he say? He said the Switch has the largest user base. Yeah, but I'm trying to say that if we go back in time, it should still translate, right? Like Breath of the Wild is on a super successful console and it did really well. But how come when we go back in time and we look at older entries on really popular Nintendo consoles, they didn't sell as well, right?
Well,
and I get what Ninja Kitty is going to say about the Wii, right? The Wii is more of a...
what console had the same amount of sales?
It's a boomer system.
You guys keep saying, go back to school, go back. Like, Ninja Kitty, you were the one. I'm never going to forget that you told me that your film knowledge came from you working at a video store. So
Ninja Kitty likes.
I'm always going to get at that.
Hey, Quentin Tarantino came from a video store.
Yeah, but Quentin Tarantino's not Ninja Kitty. Ninja Kitty hasn't even made a film in his life. So it's like, what am I supposed to say? He hasn't picked up a camera, shot, edited on Final Cut or Premiere, done the sound. You get what I mean? It's a tangent. I'm just gonna keep going because he's going at me. So, I mean, it's all for fun anyway. But I just want to say this. I just like getting riled up like this. It's actually kind of fun. I see why Gary does it.
It's flowing.
Because I'm seeing what everybody's saying, and it's like, yes, I see what you're saying.
But
I'm the one out of touch. I'm the youngster.
But I'm trying to. That's not what I said.
No. I'm talking about the chat. I wasn't talking about
the chat right now. What I'm saying is, what console had the same amount of sales as the Switch? The Switch's audience is monumentally
but even before 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 it
PS2.
hit. Sure, but before it even hit that milestone of passing, I dropped out.
No, you're good.
I think he dropped his phone. Or something.
Gary plus Carl equals blinded. No blinded. What we're saying is you're crazy. So what I'm saying is I don't think that turn-based RPGs are going away. There are several new turn-based RPGs coming out in the coming year. Despite what blinded might think, we are not out of touch.
MFFGA, right, Tony?
Yeah, make Final Fantasy great again.
Yeah.
And I think with blinded, I didn't drop my phone, and I'm still in the chat. He's the one who boomered himself out of the conversation.
Oh, he did. Oh, he's gone.
Yep. So I think we'll just end it right there. Thank you, Blinded, for conceding. And
anyway. Blinded lost.
Yeah.
It's a forfeit. The two sweetest words in the English language. Forfeit. Yeah.
What's next?
And Nat Murphy says the highest selling Pokemon game of all time, the time of the turn-based RPGs, and now in the past. I don't know. The new Pokemon game's still going to be turn-based RPG, apparently, and that's a huge franchise. Yeah, turn-based, that was the argument I was going to say. Turn-based RPGs in general were always niche. Final Fantasy VII was like when they broke through, right? It was like, oh my God, everybody was talking about that game. Pokemon,
I think,
for as mainstream as Pokemon
that had a lot to do too. I think that had a lot to do too that it was on the PlayStation 1. You know, it was like a big title on that. That was like a system that was really getting popular at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people had PlayStation 1s as CD players as well.
Yeah, and I think it was just the graphics were such a step up. Oh, yeah. Blinded, sorry, but we ended the topic. You lost.
Oh, boy.
Potion says, thank Blinded for being a good sport. Welcome back, Bary.
I'm the new Gary. Gary is Andy.
Blinded
Bary.
out.
Did he call him Bary? Oh, yeah,
Bary.
King of all buttocks says, blinded out Gary.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is.
All the 40-year-olds are like, you freaked out and we all won.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII had the PS1 and massive advertising behind it, yes, but it was still a turn-based RPG at the end of the day. People knew what they were getting it.
No, they didn't. Majority didn't.
I don't think people are that dumb. I'm pretty sure when they picked up the box and they went, "Oh, that's what it is."
When I picked up Final Fantasy VII, when I remember clearly going into Blockbusters, it was 2 for $30. I was picking out games. I looked at the back. I had no idea it was a turn-based game. Had no idea it was a JRPG. I know that's just me, but I'm just saying. I had no idea that it was a JRPG or an RPG at all. I didn't didn't really back then.
You didn't read?
No, you didn't really know what you was going to get when you bought a game. There wasn't like YouTube. You couldn't just look up every game which is coming out. Like, it was always a bit of a gamble.
Well, trust it was a Final Fantasy game. Yeah, it was a Final Fantasy game. So right off the bat, I mean, there's that being part of a franchise that's established as a turn-based RPG franchise.
Yeah. Well, Final Fantasy VII was the big one that broke out Final Fantasy as a series.
You're wrong. Just another viewer. You're wrong. I'm more intolerable based on what everybody. I mean, it's all fun and games. Like, I'm not like it's just games. But I mean, like, I still am very like Bob semi agrees with what I'm trying to say. I'm just like agree. So all over the place.
I probably like 90% agree. It's just your wording is a bit off.
Yeah, my wording, because I'm getting like all flustered. Like, I'm sure if I sat down and wrote an article about it, like that's the thing. I feel like we would need to. You need to have a lot more people that are kind of like, how old are you, Bob? Just so I can give a range.
I'm on the edge of boomer, 38 this year. I don't know. I'm 39 this year. Fuck.
Well, that's closer to Tony's age. So.
Yeah,
I feel like you need to get like 18 to 30. Let's pull those people and like ask them their question and like make sure that like they're playing games, like not like, oh, I just play Fortnite. No, like play a wide range of games so we can get like a good opinion. Because like
a wide range of games.
Yeah, but you're not in that
age. Like I don't play any games. Like,
no, that's not what I'm saying. Like you're not in that age group.
Yeah.
You're not the one with the experience. You're with a different kind of experience, right? So that's why it's like it's kind of unfair.
As well as anyone else's.
No, but that's not the point though. That's why we go based on generations. It's like people grow up and they experience things based on what they played, right? And it affects their outlook and sometimes their creativity, right? Where it's like, you know, if you're playing, you know, within that age range, right? Like 18 to 30, they were like what? Early PS1 to now, like they grew up on, right? Maybe even like the PS2, the start of the PS2. That's a big difference compared to like your guys' generation where you guys grew up in the bit era, right? Like there's some people who've never played a 2D game. They just play 3D games. And that's a big difference. That's going to affect your outlook on games.
Totally.
Like it's same thing with movies and music.
Are you trying to say that kids don't like pixel art games?
Yeah.
Like, no.
I would say a good chunk of them. Minecraft is not really a 2D. It's not a. I wouldn't say that's a pixel art game. Like if we're looking at, there's a lot of people. I shit you not, on Twitter, they were refusing to play the new Turtles game because they said the graphics look bad. It was like, what the hell? This looks amazing. This is.
I wouldn't call them amazing. They look good. They weren't amazing.
No, but like when they say it's bad looking, they're like, "Hey, I can't play this. Is bad graphics.
I can't play it. It's so old looking."
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. Like you have to hang out. Yeah, you be around people within that age group. They're going to tell you something where you're like shocked.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of worried about the TMNT game. I was a bit worried if it was going to get backlash for being so pixely. The younger generation. But like they weren't bringing that out. That game was for the older generation. That wasn't for the younger generation.
Yeah, it was for us.
Yeah, which is fair. Yeah,
they were cashing in on nostalgia.
Yeah, but like my point was to say that like that does exist, right? I'm not the one saying it, right? I just see that on Twitter. Like when you go on Twitter or you talk around or people in real life in that age group and you talk about games or movies, they have a very different perspective of like people that are like 10 years older, right? Yeah. And it's just because they consume different media, right? And that's why I'm like, when I look at the chat, I know most of the people in the chat are not my age.
Yeah,
right? They're way older than me, right? So it's like I get why people are like,
why are you calling our audience old, man?
It's true, though.
They're like 90.
It's true.
Those people are like parents.
Dude's like,
you guys are parents, if I'm being honest.
How old is Blinded? I told you he's like 17. It's like
I'm like 17. No, I'm like 22. I just turned 22. But it's like, like 50K is saying like my generation, there's some kids where I'm shocked. They're like, oh no, my first console was like the PS3 or 360. I'm like, you didn't even play on GameCube or PS2? It's like, what the fuck?
It'll happen to you, Blinded.
I don't even like Fortnite.
Yeah,
I know it's.
You be.
I don't even play Fortnite.
Don't lie.
I hate Fortnite. Who did I say? I think it was Dean or Dorkside. I can't stand Fortnite. Like it's one of the worst things. It's terrible. But like I understand why it's popular. Like that's the thing. I understand, but not like it.
Thank you.
All right. I think we should move on to the most important topic of the night.
Hey, get out of my way. This dude's using hot takes, so you might as well stay. It's time